Good News Ministries of GNM.org. It's the Catholic place for growing your faith. Good News Ministries will provide you with faith-building reflections, virtual retreats, prayer resources, and lots more. All of it is free. Visit GNM.org today. Introducing the redesigned CatholicSingles.com, featuring new ways that put the spotlight on the person and their faith, not just a profile picture. For the past 20 years, faithful Catholics have used CatholicSingles.com, and the reimagined CatholicSingles.com website is ready to help single Catholics take the next step in sharing meaningful relationships with other faithful Catholics. Remember, CatholicSingles.com for faith, fellowship, and love.
Well, hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Lisa, Hendey, and Friends. I am so excited to share today's guest with you. She doesn't really need an introduction, but I'm going to give you one, and I'll just share that when we were talking about having Jeannie Gaffigan on the show, I had a great chance to take a look at a preview copy of her new book that we'll be discussing today. I was reading it on an airplane, and the person next to me thought I was having both a crying attack and a laughing attack. So Jeannie Gaffigan is a director, producer, and comedy writer. She's co-written 7 comedy specials with her husband, Jim Gaffigan, the last of 4 which received Grammy nominations. Jeannie was the head writer and executive producer of the critically acclaimed and award-winning Jim Gaffigan Show, which was loosely based on their family's life. She collaborated with Jim on his 2 New York Times bestsellers, Dad is Fat and Food, A Love Story. And Jeannie, with the help of her 2 eldest children and some other crazy moms, created the Imagine Society, which is a nonprofit that connects youth-led service groups. Most impressively, Jeannie grew a tumor on her brainstem, roughly the size of a pear, which resulted in the book that we will talk about today. Welcome to the show, Jeannie Gaffigan.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a real treat, and I've been waiting ever since I read the book to have this conversation. And I want to just say to everybody, if you're holding a device in your hands, just pause right now and immediately go pre-order When Life Gives You Pears. You'll definitely want to have a copy of this book. But before we jump into the book, for anybody who maybe doesn't know you or your family, why don't you just give us a very basic introduction?
Of the book or of
you guys, of your family.
Okay. So my husband and Jim is a comedian, and I am the producer of his shows and also the producer of his 5 kids, which are also my 5 kids. So I have kids that range in age from 6 to 15, and they're really awesome, and also they're really terrible sometimes. So,
good fodder for comedy writing, I'm sure.
Yes. Yes,
fun.
they are. It's like it just kind of writes itself.
Yeah, no kidding. You just sit around with a notebook and watch and see. So I want to dive into talking about the book. And I guess to do that, we kind of have to put it in context a little bit. So, I mean, this is not a book you were expecting to write. Maybe you can give us a little introduction to just basic, like what happened without going into too many spoilers in the book. And how did you decide to eventually share it in book form?
Okay, well, I'm not going to assume that anyone knows why it's called When Life Gives You Pears. But basically, this is a memoir that chronicles my experience from discovery through recovery, still in progress, from a pear-sized tumor on my brainstem that was discovered and required an urgent craniotomy in the middle of a very, very busy and overwhelming life. And the lessons that it sort of taught me, and how ultimately I feel gratitude for having this happen to me, which is, an incredibly ironic feeling of being grateful for something, that was pretty horrible. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. In terms of how did I decide to share this, it was kind of by accident because prior to this all happening, I was in the middle of writing a manuscript, which was a funny take on, being a busy mother with 5 kids and how I didn't have time to do anything. And this is kind of the life hack book of how to survive in a busy life, whether you have kids or 5 dogs or 5, or 10 kids or 2 kids or 1 kid and a million projects. So it was kind of in the, genre of the classic Irma Bombeck sidetracked home executive style of like comedy writing about, coping with humor to kind of make it through the day. And there were a lot of photographs, a lot of lists, a lot of ironic observations about, how to get 5 kids through security at the airport and things like that. So this was one of the many projects that I was working on when a routine MRI to check on a audio, I guess it's called oral neuroma. There was a suspicion that I might have something blocking the inside of my ear canal because I just lost the hearing in one of my ears. Through reluctantly going for checkups because I was like, well, obviously nothing's wrong with me. This routine MRI revealed that I had like this, urgent situation with a, massive brain tumor, which was, I didn't really have room for it on my daily itinerary.
You hadn't written that in on your to-do list that day.
Yeah. It wasn't on my list. So I was like, can I just do this another time? Can I put this off? But I couldn't. So when I was, just skipping ahead from the, basically, most of the story that I chronicle in the book, when I was recovering at home. So at a certain point, I am transferred from the ICU to a regular room for a short period of time. And then they want to get me out of the hospital because I'm sick and I'm getting sicker around the hospital. So there's a whole period of time, which I chronicle in the book, where I moved home, but I'm still on, machines and things like that. So during this period of time, I had a lot more freedom to get, visitors and phone calls and things. So my book agent from, who was working with me on the manuscript that I just described, just basically called in to check up on me. And I took it as he was being like, when are you going to turn in the manuscript? So I said, I promise you, Simon, I'm going to finish that manuscript. It's happening. And he's like, no more manuscript. Hold on, I have to pause for a second. Can you quickly text Danielle and say that I'm on a press call and I can't? She's texting me incessantly. Sorry, that would be edited out. Anyway, suffice it to say that he was like, there's no more, how to organize your laundry room book happening right now. If you're going to write a book, you're going to write a book about this crazy experience because it's unbelievable what just happened to you. And I was so focused on my other projects that I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, why don't I just do a chapter? Because I'm so far ahead. Why don't I just do a chapter? Oh, yeah. And then, life hack, how to deal with getting a brain tumor. He's like, no, the whole book. He's like, Jeannie, people are calling me being like, what happened? So he's like, if you are going to, so he planted that idea in my head. Now, meanwhile, through the entire process, because Jim and I are used to looking at the world and stress and, whether it's tragedy or small problems or just, life, looking at it through the lens of comedy. So, for instance, when we had no kids, we observed what it was like to, be in New York at this time, etc. When we had kids, we had to write about the kids. When we had the brain tumor, we had to write about the brain tumor. It was just the coping mechanism. So during a lot of these phases, there was a lot of writing going on. Even when I couldn't move, I would, whisper to Jim, write this down. I would come out of an MRI for 2 hours and, and just say, you need to write this down. Write down clown horn. I would just think of things and be like, when things would happen to me, I would think of how they were funny. I didn't try to. It just came naturally.
Yeah. That's
so when I started to cobble together, because a lot of people were saying what happened, and I was frankly, my vocal cords are compromised, so it's hard for me to speak for extended periods of time, ironically, as I'm speaking a mile a minute. But I started to write down snippets during the entire process, or someone else would make a list for me or something. And so when I realized that I had to either put this together into a blog, it was a now thing. It wasn't like in 10 years I'm going to write a book about this experience, because I knew I was going to move on and who knows what's next. This is a step on the journey of my life, and it's now. So I have to share it now or never. And I don't know if it's a blog or a private diary or whatever. So when I was putting together the chronology of what happened, I found myself able to go back and kind of interview my sick, recovering self, because I had all these, drips and drabs of a madman, notes and this and that, to kind of write a book from. And then also in my perspective, I could make sense of a lot of it. Why did this happen? And even as far back as the beginning of time, why did God pick Jim Gaffigan and Jeannie Gaffigan to get married? What's it for this? Because it helped me immensely. I don't know what I would have been able to do to cope with this if I didn't have Jim. If I didn't have the family and friends that had been designed, the family and friends that had been designed for my life. So it helped me connect with just a larger picture of, instead of why me, I was there was a little bit why me, but it's in a positive way, oh, now I see, it wasn't about why did this happen to me. It was isn't it wonderful that this happened to me? Yeah. Because I had a safety net.
That framing.
And I had kids that were, yeah. So it's a simple book, but it's also a complicated book.
Yeah, I think I've actually read it twice. Once was a binge read because I just couldn't stop, and I was on a cross country flight, and I literally probably seemed like I was having a nervous breakdown to the person sitting next to me, because I was alternating between laugh out loud guffaws and then sobbing pass me a Kleenex kind of sobbing. There's so much emotion in the book, and so everybody knows, this is a very recent occurrence. This happened in 2017, and you didn't get as you describe it in the book, you were functioning, but you were also kind of ignoring maybe some early warning signs, because you're the mom and you're taking care of everybody else and you're a busy professional, and work goes on or whatever. One thing that I want to ask you about is the advice that you now give to women in terms of just kind of listening to what's going on with your body, and maybe, why it serves your family for you to actually take a little bit of time to follow up on things that are bothering you. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I really push that. Yeah, I should push that theme because, that's a big part of it, is that, and to explain a little bit, is that even though the hearing loss is ultimately what, brought me into the MRI, and not by my own will, by someone saying, you have to do this. What happened is that when I discovered, that there was something wrong with me and was interviewed by a doctor about symptoms, I realized that I had, the symptoms, but I was compartmentalizing them and explaining them away because it was easier for me to focus on other people than it was on myself because of some kind of inborn desire to not be a problem. And I think that, women, a lot of women, and this is not an anti-feminist observation, but I think that naturally we have a tendency to not focus on ourselves. That is it is in our, evolutionary development, right? So we have the babies, I envision the primitive man, the husband is sitting the man is sitting in a bush all day with a spear, waiting for the beast to appear, and just sitting there focusing on one thing for 10 hours. And the primitive female is back thatching the hut, having the babies, planting the plants, harvesting, it's sort of this multitasking, the way that our brains work. And they're mostly directed on, even though, you could argue that the man is focused on the providing role. This is evolutionary. This is not some kind of social statement I'm making.
Yeah.
I really believe that women are built to care for others in a more, their bodies produce humans. That's just the way it is. And it's a way to live. And we all find ourselves in that, kind of hamster wheel. And what happens is you start ignoring that nagging suspicion that something's wrong. Because even the most paranoid hypochondriac would not assume that having a headache, it automatically means a brain tumor.
Yeah.
Especially when you say, oh my gosh, I have a terrible headache. And then someone else says, oh, the allergy season, it's the pollen, it's so high this year. And then you're like, okay, explain it away. It's pollen.
That's what it is.
But when you look at all these little different things in your life that are going on, that are kind of going, hello, go to the doctor, get yourself checked out, express your concern to a doctor. It is okay. It is okay for mom to get sick. It's okay for a mom, even if you're that's what happened to me. I had my children at the doctor for their visit. And that's when the doctor was like, what's wrong with your ear? Mm-hmm. And then I had to tell her, I have not been able to hear out of the ear for a really long time. And it was embarrassing because I realized that I had been neglecting myself. And what good am I for all the things that, if my life goal is to make sure that my kids, survive the day, what good is it if I don't? So my advice would be don't be afraid to say, I just have a weird feeling. And you know what? Worst case scenario, it's nothing. I mean, best case scenario, it's nothing. Best case scenario, it's nothing. So you're not going to get judged by your doctor. If you say, you know what, could I just get a blood test or could I just get a hearing test because I have this weird whooshing sound in my ear. I think we're afraid to say things like that because we're afraid that, we're going to appear weak or that we can't, or selfish. I mean, I'm speaking generally, but I'm talking about myself. So
no, I mean, it totally makes sense. And I think when we look at your story, we can see times. I mean, I certainly looked back at my own life and saw times when, I could have learned from this example. So I'm so glad for so many reasons that this is getting out there. One major factor in the book, and something that you and Jim clearly live in your life, is, the importance of faith to your family life. And I love how you mix in both the history of kind of your guys' faith journey and your private, what your faith means to you, the touch points that you had into this without being ever preachy about it. It's just like so organic to who you are. How did this kind of, which, I mean, it essentially gives you a little bit of a chance at a do-over. Like, you had a lot of very quiet time to consider your faith life. How do you come out of it on the other end, kind of looking at the role of faith for you before and after, and what it means to sustain your family?
You know what? Can you kind of simplify that question?
Yeah, no, just basically, before you had this happen, you were a woman of faith. You were a church-going woman. You're raising your children in faith. But you, frankly, almost died, and that's what a lot of us who are people of faith, we think about. I'm preparing whatever. I'm preparing for this life, but also for what comes after, and. Coming right up to the edge of almost looking at what comes after. I mean, how do you think about faith differently now than you did before?
Okay, I totally understand what you're saying. Okay, so essentially, I am, I don't think that I had, some epiphany through this about my faith specifically. Mm-hmm. What happened was I had faith. And it was more than church going, but I've had other experiences in my life that have kind of deepened my faith. So even when I was like, I'm faithful, I believe in God. I want to, I want to go to heaven. I want everyone I love to go to heaven. And I had that concept. I didn't really want to go to heaven because I didn't want to die, and I'm not saying I do now, but it's like we all keep talking about heaven, but then we're terrified of dying, which is not really faithful, right?
Yeah.
So it was more like I've had, before this experience, I had things happen in my life where I had to confront, what the concept of heaven is. Like, heaven is a promise that this isn't it. So, and heaven is something that, with faith, it's the entire, gospel and, the entire Bible is about this thing. And we can, talk the talk, but we have to be able to walk the walk. We have to say, look, if this means, I had to get to the point where I was like, if this means that it's over for me, this has to mean that this is the pinnacle of faith right now. The pinnacle of my faith is happening right now. Mm-hmm. Because I have to be able to believe with 100% certainty that this is meant to be, if this is it for me. And that is an incredible moment to get to, but it's not an epiphany.
Yeah.
Right. Because we already say, grandma's in heaven and she's happier and she's not with pain and she's so happy and we're going to see her again someday. We say that. But when it comes down to actually, by the way, you have this long to live. Are we really going to say, well, if that's the will of God, then that's the will of God. How real is this? Because I also talked to God and I said, God, if it's your will that this is it for me, all right. But this is what I'm saying. I don't want it to be. And if and I will fight, but I'm not fighting you. I'm not fighting against your will.
Beautiful.
I that's very deep.
One thing that you write about in the book is also kind of like the community of faith that's around you and people, that were supporting you through prayers, but also kind of hands-on, like feeding your family and making sure things got done. So that probably kind of shows you too what living a life of faith is all about, I'd imagine. Like having that faith community.
I'm sorry. Can you say it again? Someone just interrupted me.
Oh, sure. No, just, you guys were supported by a lot of prayers, but also people that kind of helped you. I mean, you got 5 kids and people need to get places. Like you had family, but also friends in your faith community that came around you. So I think one thing that I thought about when I was reading the book is just how, as church, like just using any kind of church, it doesn't have to be a Catholic church, any church, certainly we're on a path to know God, but we're also like community to each other. And one thing that was evident to me was that people rose up and surrounded you and supported you. Is that a fair thing to say about the community that supported you?
Yeah, and it's also like going back to what I was saying before about how, it made me realize that all the people and why I chose this neighborhood in New York and why I went to this church and why I met this, like it all made sense through my crisis. I was like, oh, I have like a faith community. I have an amazing family. I have an amazing husband. And like, having the faith community, like it's like obviously you don't want to make friends or join a church or whatever just in case you get a brain tumor. Like obviously that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying like when you have these kind of people in your life who have these certain kinds of values of like compassion, because if you have a community of people who have compassion, faith, and this list of attributes, these are the people that you want in your, party during the zombie apocalypse. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like you want to be surrounded with good people. So if we live our lives in a situation where we're like, we look at people and say, you know what, everything is great right now. We might be just at a picnic or we might be having a lemonade stand. But we have this higher, deeper bonds between us. We're all kind of playing by the same rule book. We're part of a larger family.
It's beautiful. I'm wondering. Yeah,
I'm saying these people are out there, And I think that in our lives we have to, I tell my teenage daughter this a lot of the time on social media. It's like you'll have 2,000 friends, but none of those people are your friends. Like figure out. You really can count the friends on one hand. Mm-hmm. But then if you have a community of people that has a common value system, and I'm telling you, it's definitely my church community, my faith community were. Amazing because I could speak the language with them and be like, okay, here's the thing. I need the anointing of the sick. It's like that kind of language. But also the people in other facets of my life, they might not be like, I write something about my dear childhood friend who just happens to be an atheist. Mm-hmm. He is an atheist. He's like, I believe in science, Big Bang Theory. Everything can be explained by science. But like he strengthened my faith so much during this process because I was like, you are part of like God's plan. Yeah. God like anointed you as my like savior in this, and it's like by me sharing that with him, it's like there's something that, and being free to share it with him and not being afraid that he's going to run away because I'm being like, and now I really think you shouldn't curse because that means you're going to hell. And I'm not proselytizing to him. I'm just being who I am.
Yeah.
And thanking him for who he is.
Don't you think that's the best way?
That's really got to be the new evangelization.
Yeah.
Because that's the way that you build. You are living the gospel, rather than picking up a Bible and beating someone over the head with it and judging them for not doing, reading it the exact same way you did.
Yeah. Beautiful. Jeannie, I'm wondering for you and Jim, I mean, this was one thing that comes through really clearly in the book is your partnership, both creatively and in terms of your family life. And, this was a time where you had to kind of sit back and allow other people to serve you, to be, present to you. So with your marriage with Jim and your creative partnership, we're already seeing this book, as a fruit of this time. What else do you think will come out of for your work? What happened to both of you through this?
Well, that's a really, really great question. In the months following the surgery, literally months, we produced a comedy special called Noble Ape. Okay, and it's out there. It's called Noble Ape, and there's like 25 minutes about the brain tumor, about medical. I mean, right away we started writing about it. Okay, then after that, we're just got this complete fountain of production. Like it's from a really true, heartfelt place where it's just flowing. Like there's no writer's block going on here. And because after Noble Ape, which was kind of our communal experience, it was a comedy special, an hour comedy special that was like both of our experience, what we had just gone through. And also, so we're not completely insane. I mean, we are, but just pretend we're not. This special was already on the books to be filmed.
Wow.
And like yeah. So before this all happened, so instead of canceling it, we just got all this other material for it. So it's like, I mean, what a blessing. I mean, it's unbelievable. Because Jim canceled all of his shows during this time. Like, people bought tickets, and they were like, they didn't say why. They just said, we're going to let you know, we're going to give you a refund, or, he's coming back in April or whatever. I don't know exactly how it was handled because I was pretty out of it. But all of a sudden, Jim was there. His tour was over. But we still went ahead and did this comedy special. So that was a real boost to, like, this is actually going to be a springboard for us. So then all of a sudden after this, Jim gets like offers to be in like 6 different films, and it's a serious actor, which is not what we were normally used to getting. It's what Jim wanted, but it was like all of a sudden the gravity of life started to like translate into, our career. And then, obviously Dad is Fat and Fruit, A Love Story are just full-on comedy books. Then I write this book, this manuscript, When Life Gives You Pears, which is, hopefully funny, but it also has some really serious stuff going on in it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That was my project. Whereas before, it was like the show, the comedy specials, our careers together have been like a teamwork collaboration. Me producing, directing, him out there on stage. We're both writing. Our TV show was, loosely based on our lives. So there was literally a character named Jeannie Gaffigan who I wrote. Mm-hmm. I wrote her voice. So it was he wrote his voice. We collaborated on all the other stories. So it was a true collaboration. So here, Jim goes off and does all these films, which I had, barely, I read the scripts. That was how far my influence went in it. And I wrote this book, and he read the manuscript and gave me a few, notes, and that's how far. So we did these very independent projects together, apart. And now we're working on something together with all of this. Like, it's almost like we went off and took classes by ourselves, and then we came back and brought all of our knowledge into our new project. So it's like, it's been a real both not only for our marriage and our personal life and our relationship with our children and our parenting, for our artistic, creative fulfillment. It has, increased, like, it's like you dip the net in the sea and you come up with this huge net full of fish all of a sudden. And it's like, whoa, I thought it was supposed to be like, an empty lake. And now
it's filled with fish. That's a great place to kind of take a pause and just to remind everybody that the name of the book that we've been talking about is When Life Gives You Pears. We're going to have links in our show notes to all the places that you can order this book and get a hold of it. I'm going to tell you, like, it's a must read, honestly. You will love the book so much. And I definitely want to point people to Jeannie's website at jeanniegaffigan.com, where you can find not only information about the book, but also all of the projects that Jeannie and Jim have done together. There's great trailers and ways to easily go over. If you miss seeing the Jim Gaffigan show, you can get links there of how to go stream it online. All kinds of great stuff that you can see right there on her website. And we'll have links again at my website to go over and grab those. Jeannie, I want to honor your busy schedule, so I'm going to let you go, but I'm just wondering if there are any kind of closing thoughts that you have before we let you get out of here and go take care of the to-do list.
I think that I would say that find my advice for myself. Okay, I'm giving myself advice, but you can
note to Jeannie and the rest of us.
Oh, note to Jeannie, and you can plagiarize if you want. Is that on your to-do list? Just slip yourself in some meaningful to-do list things, such as, tell your husband you love him today. Thank someone for doing something for you. Put on your list some random thing that is not really on your list, but it should be on your list. And that's what I'd like to leave people with.
That's beautiful. Put on something on your list
I want to plug one more thing.
Yeah, go for it.
One more thing. So the ImagineSociety.org is like this new thing that we're doing that is going to be amazing, and it connects teen service groups with meaningful service leadership opportunities. And as right now, I have a 13-year-old and 15-year-old, and right now in my church, there's a lot going on for the little ones. And we needed something for the teens because there's this huge wasteland that happens, like spiritually, where you're like, you just have to go to church.
Yeah.
Where we're not, we weren't offering them anything fun. And what the world is offering is like really fun, right, for kids. I mean, so they think. And so we've started this organization that connects kids. It's an interfaith mission. And so we're having like 4 of these like parties a year where kids are going to meet up face to face and be, exposed to a variety of ways that they can cultivate their compassionate leadership skills. So it's all on the ImagineSociety.org. And I'm really excited about it because it was something that I really felt that, the Holy Spirit inspired me to do when I was, in the darkest time of my recovery. I was like, oh, this is an idea that I have to do. So I really want people to check out the ImagineSociety.org.
That's amazing. Is it something that's portable that people that aren't living around New York could maybe bring to their own communities?
Definitely. It's definitely, right now it's in New York because, I only have like 2 hands.
Right.
But it just kind of started. But it's an idea that could be franchised in every community.
Beautiful. That sounds fantastic.
And so we have resources to help get something started like that. as well.
I think you're right,
So,
too.
and
That
also follow me on Twitter and
Yeah.
follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter for all the updates of what's going on in the Pears world as well.
Well, congratulations on so much good that's come out of a really kind of cruddy, something that you don't want to have happen, but definitely something that seems to have created beautiful fruit that will go on and bless lots of people. And Jeannie, just know that you're going to be in our prayers, and Jim and the kids are too, and just for your good health and for more great stuff coming. So friends, definitely check out When Life Gives You Pears. And again, come on over to lisahendey.com for links in the show notes to follow Jeannie on Twitter and Instagram and grab the book and everything else. Jeannie, thank you so much. God bless you and your family, and have a great day.
I'm Father Dwight Longenecker. I hope you've enjoyed listening to some of my podcasts here at Breadbox Media, but today I'm speaking to you about a different opportunity. In September 2020, I'll be leading a fantastic pilgrimage cruise from Rome to the Holy Land, and then on the way back, stopping at the cities of St. Paul, Ephesus, Athens, Corinth, and more. While we're at sea, I'll be lecturing on the Gospels, history or mystery. When we're on land, I'll invite you to join me as we visit all of the holy sites, celebrating Mass, worshiping together, and having a wonderful time of fellowship. If you'd like to know more about this pilgrimage cruise, go to my website, dwightlongenecker.com, go to the right sidebar, and you'll see a picture there which invites you to get more information. Go to my website, dwightlongenecker.com, right sidebar, click on the picture of the cruise ship, and you'll get all the information you need. Alternatively, you can call the company that's organizing the tour at 800-247-0017. 800-247-0017. Ask for Father Longenecker's Cruise to the Holy Land. Thanks for listening.
Jack Kane Ford. Find your next Ford Tough vehicle at caneford.com.